So just, I guess before we get going, just so everyone knows, I've welcomed the mayor to the meeting tonight. So he's going to be participating in our meeting. So just so everyone's aware of that. We'll start with the approval of the agenda. I didn't hear of any other news. Does anyone have any? I'm hoping everyone's had a chance to look at the agenda. Does anyone have any items to add? I would like to add something under new business. But if anyone has anything else to say, go first. Okay, great. So we, just so everyone's aware, I've invited the mayor here tonight to talk about the renovations and proposed renovations and meeting AODA and those are the other requirements, just to see if we can have a discussion about that and kind of where everything stands. So we're going to add that under new business. I'll call that 8.2, Kayla, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So just one last time, any other new business to add to the agenda? Okay. So then I'll need a seconder, please.
I'll move.
Thanks, Melanie. And
I'll
seconder?
second.
Thanks, Claire. Perfect. Any opposition to the agenda as amended? Great, we'll consider that carried. And the minutes, approval of, oh, sorry, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Pecuniary interest. It's business.
No.
Great, we'll consider none and move on to approving the agenda from November 19th. It's sent out last week. Are there any omissions or amendments to the agenda? Anything that was missed or needs to be added? And Jennifer's going to second. And is there any opposition to the minutes, pardon me, as distributed?
No.
Great. Okay, we'll consider those carried. And moving on, flip back over to my agenda here. Business arising from the previous meeting. I guess I haven't heard if the water system has been fixed. I know I went in over the Christmas break and it was still making that beeping sound. So I don't know if anyone else has been in recently to has heard that or that sort of thing.
It's
Well, I tried to get in today and my key doesn't work, but I could hear it from outside.
Okay.
And there was somebody left the lights on.
Oh. Okay. Which one was left on?
It looks like the kitchen light or the back light, the door, the kitchen's on. I was going to shut it off. Yeah, shut it off, but my key, I guess I didn't get a new key, so I couldn't get in.
I don't think that we talked about reking the doors because I had so many problems with the side door key specifically, but I don't think it's been done yet.
Still work. No, I don't think so.
Well, my key wouldn't open the side door, either one of them, so.
I'll go check it again tomorrow. I've been in and checking it. Like, I have not got a hold of anyone at the township. I don't know who I should be calling. I was calling Mike Ron, but I don't.
Yeah.
That's not the right person apparently. But can somebody give me some direction of who I should talk to? I talked to one of the guys that was checking the system. I can't think of his name right now, but he said he would check it. The alarm is still going off, but we don't have any water in the washrooms. So I don't know if they've shut the water off or not.
Yeah.
But we have running water.
Okay. It's possible that it's been shut off. Just maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Ed and I had a conversation on the side of the road one day about kind of shutting the water off and just draining the system just to protect against freezing. I mean, it hasn't been that cold yet, but I mean, it was just we just had a brief conversation, but I don't think there's been any action like that as far as I know, unless it's been done by township staff that just in preparation. So, okay.
I can reach out to Todd if you'd like.
Is it Todd that we talked
okay.
to?
Would it be Todd or Jeremy?
Yeah.
Isn't it Jeremy Lightheart?
Yeah, we could do them. I can send them an email and CC you, Claire, so that you can follow the communication and see if we can't get somebody out there to at least look at it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Wish I could think of the guy's name. He's a stockier guy.
You're muted, I think, Doug, or your mic's not working. Oh. No, can't hear you.
But anyway, I can try to
okay.
touch. Oh yeah, you know what, Carla? You can do that and CC me. Then I can meet at the hall too.
Yep, absolutely. Let's do that.
Great.
Water's important. We'll get that.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. I guess there's not really, oh, I lost my agenda. There it is. I guess there's not really any other new or business arising. How are we doing? Are there any updates, Claire, for rentals? I'm assuming we've had inquiries or maybe not. I don't know. We were having some into the fall.
I had a couple of inquiries over the Christmas break. I rented out some tables over the Christmas break.
Oh, okay.
But I have not, I haven't had any calls to rent the hall. And I have some weddings coming up this summer, but I'm not committing to anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's been a couple reschedules, right? Like those are from last summer. Yeah. Okay.
So.
All right, so it's just kind of holding right now. Great. Okay, and on to our financial report.
Hey,
Karen.
Can you hear me all right? Okay.
Yep.
So the most recent statement I have is November 30th. At that point, our bank balance was $76,734.66. Invoices paid since our last meeting, just a couple as per budget. We have outstanding bill at Creemore Echo and Stevens Fuels bill. So that's about it.
Did you pay Sally?
Sally Fraser was paid November 2nd.
Okay, perfect.
I haven't had anything after that.
Okay, that's super.
Okay.
We may need to get Sally back in. There were quite a few flies around. I don't think it would take long because there's not really that much else, but might be good to just have her come in maybe at some point, check it.
I'll schedule her for a couple hours or something someday.
Yeah, whatever works.
Yep.
Okay, any questions?
You still have the pest control going in every couple months?
Yes, we do. I haven't received an email with any updates. And to be honest with you, I forgot to look on the counter the last time I was in for a report. When were you in last, Bill?
Just after the week after Christmas, or sorry, the week right before Christmas. I think it was about the 23rd.
I was in the Monday after Christmas. So what was that, the 27th?
Yeah. He usually leaves it on the bar, right? Downstairs. I didn't see anything.
I'll reach out to Brad and find out if he's been there.
I think that you're talking about the for the rodent control specifically, John. I think that was more kind of in the fall that he's on top of that.
He was going to keep checking every 2 months. I know that he's not. They're not charging us visits, but so maybe that's why I'm not getting a report. But I will.
I was just going to say the last bill we paid to them was in July.
Yeah. So when I asked him to go in and spray for flies, he said he would, but he would not issue us an invoice because he knew that we had no income and that was going to be part of their community
That's
service.
nice of them.
All right.
wow.
Well, there you go.
So I wonder if
Very
that's
nice.
carried on, but I will reach out to him tomorrow and find out if he's still checking for the mice.
Okay. Well, if it's anything like my basement, it's been a busy season.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Anything else for Karen before we move on to new business?
Not for me.
Great. Thanks. So, I don't think there's anything to approve there. We'll just move on. COVID update on 8.1. Is that an update from you, Kayla, or what are we just?
Nope, this is your standard COVID update that you
Okay.
guys continue to pass that motion, which is a great practice. I
Right.
haven't
Okay,
received
yeah.
anything from Amanda as of yet, but I'm sure everyone's aware that we're back into lockdown and the tightened restrictions.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I was wondering if there was more of a more updates from the province. I mean, yeah, but basically at this point, since we're tightening restrictions, not much of a opening into. Okay, so we'll move to pass the motion that we have passed the past couple meetings, which states, and I'll just pull it up here. No. Sorry, I'm trying to find the resolution. Be it resolved that the Avening Community Center hereby approved keeping the hall closed for the time being. So we didn't really put any dates on that, just kind of have it as we are carrying on under the restrictions and trying to keep safe. So that's does someone it's the same motion we've passed. I think we've passed it twice at least now. Does anyone it was moved last time by Councillor Lammers. Does anyone want to move that at this point?
Cool.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. And
I'll
a seconder. Okay, great.
I'll
Thanks.
second.
Yeah, I'll have a second. All right, let's go with this one. Let's go
Okay.
all in favor of keeping the hall closed for the time being.
Yes.
All in favor, please raise your hand.
Yes.
Great. Karen says yes. Good. So all in favor unanimously carried. Easy for you to say. And anything, I guess, yeah, that's about all for that. So 8.2, I guess maybe do a little bit of history here for the AODA, just the recent history. Last spring, we were supposed to begin a process of figuring out with all across the township what the kind of plan was for renovations. Obviously, with the way everything was, that didn't happen, and so it's sort of come up a little bit. Definitely in the budgeting process, I believe it's $4 million is set aside there in the proposed budget, if I'm not mistaken, something around that ballpark. So I think there's been some discussion from some members of council, and some I've certainly it's come up, I guess, a couple times in the hall board chairs meetings that we've had as well. Just questions about the maybe some of the changes in the what's it called, FADS, the FADS document, and which is what does that stand for again? Facility Accessibility
Design Standards.
Design Standards, great.
Yeah.
So some changes in that. Of course, I think with Avening, we're in a position where we have that fully developed plan, and we're ready to, kind of put shovels into the ground whenever we can. So I just invited the mayor here to, if people want to have a quick discussion about that and where we feel we are in Avening. And even for myself, I think that it's probably a good time right now to have these kind of discussions and maybe even put in place some plans to have a couple of the halls looked at pretty seriously about moving forward. I think we're in a position where we could. So anyways, yeah, just wanted to kind of get some clarification from the mayor and have a chance to speak about that a little bit.
Excellent. Do you want me to go
Yeah,
ahead?
please.
Bill?
Thank you. Sorry.
Sure. So look, you're absolutely right. Last spring, every intention we had was to do just as you suggest. There is to have some meetings with our hall boards, to have discussions about what the requirements would be for each one. As you recall, the RJ Burnside report version 2, I like to call it, because some of us have been around long enough to see version 1. But anyway, the version 2 report came back with somewhere in the neighborhood of $7.5 million worth of work across the 6 halls that would be required. One of the questions was FADS, the FADS document. So the renovations, if they followed the FADS document, would be upwards of $7.5 million. By reducing the FADS requirement or asking the accessibility committee to consider that, we were able to reduce that a little bit. So we're in that neighborhood of $6 million worth of work across the 6 halls. So that's the only sort of action that's happened since we discussed it in the past. The accessibility committee did send us a resolution, and council passed it that supported amending the FADS document. And just to be clear, it still would meet any renovations we do would still meet the accessibility requirements of the province of Ontario. The FADS document actually exceeded those recommendations and those guidelines in some areas that ended up costing a bit of money. So, for instance, the actual size of a accessible washroom, 9 square meters, there's 9 square feet, I guess, or 9 square meters for the actual turning radius inside a washroom could be reduced a little bit to actually meet the Ontario provincial building code. So that's one of the small changes. But every time you add square footage to any renovation, as you know, it costs hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So, just by reducing the size of an accessible washroom a little bit, that did save some money. So that's just a small example of how the FADS document was adjusted to help us with this project. So there was certainly a plan put in place that council wanted to have our CAO work with our director of recreation, Terry Vachon, and meet with each of the halls to have a discussion about those renovations and what they would look like and what their expectations are. And also to get some information so council can make some decisions, from the community level about what type of input and what type of commitment members of the community have for each of the halls. And so that's sort of a roundabout way of saying we need to talk to each one of our hall boards to find out, how committed we feel that we need to be to each of these halls, and how much work and money and tax dollars we actually want to spend on these 6 halls, and are they continuing to be viable facilities that genuinely will serve the communities for 30 plus years. Now that's a sort of a tough topic, and it would be obviously a difficult conversation, but it's also a little bit of soul searching to find out, if there's really genuine interest in all of our halls. So it's it's an opportunity to have to let the individual volunteers from all of our neighborhoods have that discussion, and really look at it and talk to them, talk to their neighbors, and talk to each other about what it is that they really want to see out of these facilities. So each of our halls are very unique, as we all know, right? You've all sort of had an opportunity to understand that each of the halls are very unique. Certainly Avening Hall is not a Brentwood Hall. It's not an Ottawa Hall, and and Duntroon is not Sunnydale. They're very different in the way they operate, and as far as the capabilities and services that can be provided. And so each one does need to look at as a separate project. They're all underneath one budget, and ultimately they're all underneath Clearview Township taxpayers' dollars. So we want to be efficient and effective with the taxpayers' dollars the best we can, recognizing that some of these renovations in these particular halls are going to be quite extensive and quite expensive, and others will be perhaps moderate and very minimal. But we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to look at them all fairly and equally, and it's my hope that we will then give council an opportunity to hear from each hall board and look at these plans and give them the opportunity to make the decisions that are best for the whole community. So that all sounds very simple, very political, perhaps, strategic, but in the end, guys, it's simply about council doesn't, we don't have $7.5 million sitting here to spend right now. So we have to figure out where to get that and how to get that. I mean, we don't want to raise taxes enormously. Council just went through it just last night there. Yes, yeah, to do, we've approved a 1.59% for this year. That's a percent increase that's going to impact every resident across the whole township. And so we are continuing to put money into our reserve account for this project specifically. I believe it was asked or during the meeting, John, help me out here. I think it was 1.516 or something like that. $1.5 million is going to be in that account. So that's not anywhere near the 7 million, but it's getting there. And we're going to look for other ways to help fund that too. On the political side, you're probably aware that I have met with Minister Cho, who is the provincial minister responsible for seniors and AODA issues. And several times we've had conversations with him. Certainly Mayor Vandercruz has done the same. I've done it. We've tried. And there are no programs at this time that support funding or grant opportunities to fund AODA work right now from the province. And we've asked a couple times if there would be. We've asked if it's an infrastructure type grant that we could apply for in this case. And we're not getting a whole lot of understanding or support from the provincial ministries when we ask these type of questions. The township is also facing another infrastructure grant that we have to look at, and that's to do with a water system that has to be upgraded in Stayner. We've got a water, it's hard to say shortage, but there's a deficit for sure in the number of units and building units that are available for water in Stayner. Certainly the Stayner community does have water right now and has capacity for many years yet. But you have to look in the future as to how to build that water capacity. So there is a several $1 million project that's going to be faced in Stayner. Perhaps closer to where you folks are, you're probably aware of the expense council is going to be facing regarding the wastewater treatment plant in Creemore. That is going to be facing a significant upgrade. So council has a whole lot of heavy hitting sort of decisions to make in regards to funding. And so this is why it's important for all of our councillors to have some good information and some good conversations with all the volunteer boards about the future of these facilities. And so we want to hear those conversations.
Why?
So Mr. Chair, that's the reason we wanted to have this starting in the spring. Yep. And COVID priorities obviously adjusted. We all pivoted. We all changed our lives, and council, changed quite a bit. And so this project was sort of brought to a halt several months, and was sort of restarted again 1st of October as we were moving into the budget discussions. And so I'm glad that it did. So at this stage, I can update Councillor Lamers as well that I've been talking to Terry, and we're looking at having a council meeting with staff and engineering, and somewhere in, just looking at that, when would that be? Perhaps February 18th or 22nd. We've got to set the date for sure on that, Councillor Lamers. And that'll be a closed session council meeting because we're going to be discussing properties and identifiable individuals. And so we need to have a discussion as to how we're, the process of bringing these information and bringing these options for the board members. So that's a discussion that council will be facing. So I would suggest to you, Mr. Chair, that after the 22nd of February, we'll be setting up meetings much like this, where we'll have all members of council invited and all of your board invited, and we'll have a real discussion about what you folks feel is the future of the Avening Hall. So, one thing I caution everybody to remember that, when we spend tax dollars, we have to be careful that we look at the investment in a 30-year window or perhaps longer. I mean, look at the length of time that this building has been here, your building, the Avening Hall, and the service that it's done to the community. And it's been a pretty significant investment and paid off rather well considering the amount of money that was spent. But in today's dollars, we have to spend a lot, as you know. I think, Bill, your project was over 700,000 or something like that, was sort of where it was targeted. And so it's significant money. And so we have to find it somewhere. So we want to make sure that it's a good investment, and we want to ask our volunteers for their input. So how about that? I'll leave it at that for now. I'll put it back to you, Mr. Chair, and help answer any questions.
Great. Are there any comments for the mayor or questions, I guess, out of that? I guess there's a few things I just kind of wrote down. I mean, I think that you know, it's one of those. I feel it's a bit of it's a complex question to think about hall viability, and to think about you know, to think about the idea of you know, what the hall kind of means to the community and what the value is there. I mean, it's more than just a piece of property that's maybe worth, I don't know, in this market, 500,000. I don't know what it'd be worth, right? But and you know, and I appreciate the you know, we need to spend tax dollars wisely, and you know, need to be accountable for, of course, council has to be, and you know, you yourself, Mr. Mayor, have to be accountable for the money that is spent. Or, you know, these are community assets. These are, you know, I don't think you can really put a price on a place that people can come and get married in. People can have their celebrations of life in, and all those things, and what they mean to the community. So it's kind of tough. And yes, of course, you know, it's going to take. I mean, yeah, you said it was $700,000 was the quote.
Yeah, in that neighborhood, right? Yeah.
Whenever it was 3 years ago. So who knows what it'd be worth now? Probably, I don't know if it'd be double, but I mean, it would definitely be worth over $1 million the way construction costs are now. So, I mean, that takes a heck of a long time to pay that back at, you know, our current rental rates. But I think you know, when you do a project, and when we looked at this and planned 3 or 4 years ago when we started, we went through a very extensive visioning as a hall board. We thought, okay, it's not really worth it just to slap an elevator on the side of the building. We wanted to maintain the character. We definitely didn't want to change, you know, the bowling alleys in the basement. We didn't want to change the way the hall looks, the way the hall feels up in the auditorium. We have some really significant challenges with our water system as well, in our washrooms. You know, and like when we started talking about this, you know, there's a step it seems like everywhere, and you're going up or down almost everywhere in that building. So, you know, when we looked at what it really meant to make the washrooms, you know, wheelchair accessible, to have a single stall washroom, you know, for people who just want a single stall, don't want a male or female washroom, that sort of thing. And we also looked at our current setup in our kitchen. You know, there was some opportunity there to enhance the kitchen, to make it a little bit more user friendly, and then also, you know, I think that would increase our rentals. So it's kind of like it's a really layered discussion. I think there's a lot of nuance to when we talk about a hall being viable, especially, yeah, like 30 years. I mean, the hall is 60 years old. No, I guess it'll be 70 years old this year, right? It's 51. Yeah. So, you know, it's yeah, and it's a building that was built by the community, that was, you know, built by members of the community, who are still with us, and you know, so it's something, I think, to honor them as well, to have a commitment to this place. You know, one of the things you talked about was the hall board's commitment. I mean, I'm assuming that means in terms of like fundraising, or do you like our commitment to seeing the project through, or was it specifically like how much are we willing to fundraise?
Bill, when it comes to commitment, it's simply about the fact that respectfully, you're all volunteers, as am I, and you know the commitment of volunteer time. And unfortunately, the trends across our society are that there's fewer and fewer volunteers. And so, you know, we're going to make an investment. We're going to put a building together with a plan that's going to continue to provide a service to the community, like you said, for celebrations of life, weddings, dinners, barbecues, games, all those things. But if it doesn't have a commitment of a plan where there are, you know, residents in the community that are really keen on doing it, and then that's one of the factors that council will have to consider, because, you know, we can invest in a building, and we don't have the business plan right now to be hiring staff to operate buildings, right?
Right.
So volunteers are critically important. And to be fair, guys, it's really no different than a Royal Canadian Legion, where a Legion is all volunteer run, and they do have a couple staff people perhaps who assist to keep the thing working in a Legion. But you know, the Legion business model is that it's volunteer run. And these halls, I only use that because I know about the Legions a little bit. So, you know, I'm sure there's other examples in a community, perhaps a church, right? A church organization as all volunteer run, but usually there's someone who is, you know, obviously a driving force, who's the person who's a staff working for that organization. So in these halls, you know, again, as I said, and I mean it truthfully, all of our halls are very different. All of our hall volunteer boards are very unique and different too. And to be fair, some of the volunteer commitment is different too. Bill, a few times since I've been a politician here in Clearview and being the mayor, I've joined you at your board meetings, both in person and now here by Zoom. And a couple of times I've noticed you have a great board that always show up. Look at this. You've got a good board. And to me, that's always demonstrated that there's a group of individuals that want to volunteer and want to help out with this particular board, which is great. I can assure you this is not always the case on some other boards across this township. So it will weigh into how council has that opportunity to see what you guys are all about. You know, remember, right now you've got the deputy, or you know, the deputy mayor, myself, Councillor Lamers, who perhaps know a little bit about what goes on here, but we have other members of council who perhaps don't. So we want to make sure that each board has an opportunity to talk to the councillors and tell us what you see as the future of the hall for your community. So I know it's a tough question, and like you said, it has a lot of arms and pieces to it.
Yeah.
And I get it as far as it's been built by the community and so on. But you know, in the end, where do I find $7.5 million to satisfy the 6 halls that need severe renovation? So I see Sarah's got her hand up. Bill, has you got somebody?
Yep.
Hi.
Go ahead, Sarah.
So for me, the question I have, or sort of the way I see it, and I think last time we had a meeting, I mentioned this, and it was about creating the benchmarks and having us have a clear understanding that would make council want to do this, because we do recognize how expensive it is. We do recognize it is vulnerable. We know exactly the situation that we're in. And ultimately, this is a political decision in the current way that we're processing this. So how do we understand how you are going to make this decision other than how we feel? Feelings are fine, and we all have them, but really they're not a great way to make the entire decision. You know, you need some other information too. So what kind of framework can council and staff give us so that we can really assess this and understand the level of commitment that's expected, the desired outcomes from the council's perspective on this kind of investment, that sort of thing? Because really just having councillors talk to hall boards, we're all going to say the same thing. We love our halls. They're an important part of our community, la, la, la. You're not going to hear anything different from any one of us. We need some actual tangibles and some real measurables that we can say, yes, we can meet this benchmark. We can do this. We can, you know, give us 3 years as hall boards, and we can all, you know, have the opportunity to check these boxes. And if we haven't checked the boxes, then we don't get to play this game anymore. There has to be a better way than just talking to us as individuals. We all love our halls. Nobody wants to see the halls go.
All right, I'm interested to hear what those other ways are. We'll put that question to counselors for sure at our discussion.
But why are the counselors, sorry, this is where I'm wondering where this professional planning staff, community development officers, and recreation people that can actually give us some information on what is needed to make these halls work and what makes it worth the investment. That's what I think this is where we need help as hall boards. And then we can try and live up to those expectations, or we can say, no, this is completely unrealistic. We can't do this. And then it's really cut and dry. The decision will become much more apparent and easier for us as volunteers to understand as well.
No doubt, no doubt. I agree with you, Sarah. You got some really good points there. And you are absolutely right in the early part of your comment, Sarah, and that is that it is going to be a political decision. But it does need to have some facts based on those decisions, on how counselors are going to be asked to make those decisions. So I'm hoping that staff, our experts, our staff people who are, like you said, recreation, as well as some of the engineering type staff persons, can give us some of the facts so that they can make some decisions. I've said it before about your board, Bill. You heard me say this, that your booking calendar is probably one of the best tangible tools that you can use to demonstrate that there is a need and a expectation of the community of Clearview that this hall is used and is utilized. And so it's important to demonstrate that, because you know, the calendar it demonstrates that there's people from the community using it, not just the energy of the volunteers that, you know, that really want to use it. You want to hear from the community. And so if you have a really good calendar that demonstrates, outside of this previous COVID year, obviously, that you can show the great need that there is in the community to have this facility, then that's obviously going to help you out. But I can assure you, it's still a very difficult decision. You know, it's not easy, mainly because we simply just don't have the $7 million just. When we built Station 1, it's what we've just signed in regards to the new library build. Like, that was $3.5 million to do the library build. So yeah, there's some significant decisions that council would have to make on where you're going to find that kind of funding. And you know, from the province, I mean, I'm still hoping that we're going to be able to see something come from the province, mainly because the AODA regulations come into effect in 2025, which isn't very far off. By the way, so you know, and I don't mind clearly telling you, I asked the minister, what if we don't meet AODA requirements? What are you going to do? Are you going to give us a fine? Are you going to tell us we have to close? Are you going to ignore us? I mean, what are we going to do? When, you know, if we can't meet it, what are we going to do? And he did not provide an answer. And interestingly enough, Councillor Leishman stood up at that Roma conference, or OGRA conference, or anyway, she stood up and asked a similar question, and the minister didn't answer that question either. So we don't know. We don't know. We could leave the buildings exactly as they are and just keep them safe, or we could invest a lot of money of taxpayers' dollars and renovate them to make them even better, viable, important facilities in our community. So.
I see Sarah's got her hand up
Yeah,
again.
I see that. Yeah,
I think the challenge.
Sorry,
just to quickly respond. I think Doug and I've had this conversation. A couple of times, anyways. But I mean, we've talked about the possibility of the 2025 date being delayed, and
Yep.
I think the answer to probably to your question is what would happen if we don't do it. I think that if the township were in a position where they had a facility that was not in compliance with AODA and they had someone who couldn't access the building for because the buildings were unaccessible, then the township is probably then open to lawsuits and possibly human rights commissions. Like there's some, like, okay, yeah, there's not going to be a hall accessibility police coming down and issuing fines and those sorts of things. But I would offer the opinion, I guess is the best way to put it, that it would be worth significantly more if the township were to be facing a hefty lawsuit than after they're supposed to be in compliance. Sorry, Sarah.
So from I'm just wondering if it would be helpful if, I would be willing to work on this and create some sort of a standard inventory for the hall boards, or a standard checklist or questions that are real tangibles. Like, for instance, how many board members do you have? How long have they been serving? How many annual rentals do you have? Obviously, the revenue is easy to find out because that's on the books. But I'm just wondering if there's some way that we could create sort of this information package regarding each individual hall and its operations, so that is really clear to all, that everybody's reading the same information when they go through all this decision making. And I just think that's really, really important, talking about it. And I would be happy to start something and have it by the professionals, but I just don't want it to be just about like conversations one-on-one with individual people and not based on real facts and information.
Okay, I concur, and I would encourage you, Sarah, to reach out to Terry Vachon with your offer of support, because and further, I would encourage you not to reach out to members of council about it, because you want to make sure that you get that information to the staff so that they can include it in their reports.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, as a person who's going to be called to make a decision, I want to see all that information when I see it from everybody all at once. I don't want to see it just from one hall at a time. That way, then we can see what we have here, because we have to treat each hall board equally and equitably. And so we don't want to have one hall board with a fantastic, show of support and other hall board just ignoring it. You see what I mean?
And that's why I'm recommending, or at least I would find it helpful as a decision maker to be able to look at some kind of a standardized information sheet. There's always going to be political stuff. There's always going to be other stuff, but at least you've got similar information to look at for each hall board. And I think I would be happy to work on that. That's my first thing. And I will reach out to Terry. Evening hall board member, so I don't know.
You're an interested citizen for sure. So I would for sure bring this to him. Okay.
So I don't think I need a motion to communicate with him from evening. Okay.
No.
And my second thing is, in terms of if there are going to be decisions around closures of halls, it means that there is there's going to be assets that are going to be sold off. And is there any way to ensure that if there are decisions around assets being sold, that we know that all of the money is going to go back into other halls or other community centers and resources? Because I think that's really important, and it can offset some of the costs as well.
For sure. And again, that's part of our discussion that we will have with council and staff. And again, it'll be a in-camera discussion, because it's talking about the actual values of individual properties, and we have to have that discussion, without the public present, because we may be setting prices and that type of thing. So it's real estate. You have to be careful of the value of real estate. So
but we're not talking value, we're talking concept. So
I know.
If you're not talking about the actual value, are you in a position to say that the money that is you know, if garnered through the sale of
It would-
any
it would-
hall go towards other facilities? Are you in a
Council-
position to do that public?
Sure, of course. Council, of course, sets policies, so council can bring forward a policy such that that would be the case. It isn't a policy right now. Any real estate that we sell goes back into the Township of Clearview underneath administration. And I give you an example of that. We've recently sold the Stainer branch of the library on Huron Street, and the funds went back into the administration side, and that will then be sold back to the library. So it comes in to administration, and then it gets by policy sent to the department that it goes to. So
Okay.
we would have to make sure that there's a policy like that. Okay, that
That
makes
would-
sense.
Yeah, that would be a huge request from me, is that if the hall
Yeah.
board I've been giving so much to for over a decade now was going to be cleared out, I'd want to be sure that that money went to another hall if it was able to continue to operate. That's just my personal feeling.
For sure. You know, there's a lot of arms to this thing. There's no doubt about it. And it's, I had hoped that we would have had the opportunity all through the spring and summer of this past year to have this type of discussion. And, but we will have to do it in this format until we can all meet together, to be honest. And that's the, we have to move ahead, because as you said, Bill, cost of construction continues to go up like crazy. So we have to get on this sooner than later.
Yeah, nothing's getting cheaper.
Kidding.
So then, okay, just to give us some I guess some takeaways from this. So you're having your meeting in February, so potentially in early
March, April.
March-ish. Yeah, we would look to be having, now would the meeting you're talking about with council staff and hall boards, would that be as all of the hall boards, or would it be there'd be like individual hall boards and then kind of getting to get an individual picture and then put that together? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, that's the difficulty, right, of running an administration when you have a public agency like a public council, a township. But we do have each of these halls are considered real estate and are considered assets, and so we can, under the Municipal Act, go in camera to have a discussion about real estate. And so we also can go in to have discussion about identifiable individuals. So both of those categories fit when you're talking about our halls, because they're the halls, the actual physical real estate, and the hall boards, which you are all individuals. So it's important to keep that in there, that we know that we have an opportunity to discuss it frankly amongst councillors, and then we'll be able to come forward with a report from those meetings that then the staff will present to council, and then we'll be able to announce what our plan is. And I have no idea what the plan will look like, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just kind of thinking ahead for the
Sure.
process more than the plan at this point. So are you saying that hall boards would be involved in camera meetings? No.
Yes.
Yes.
Very much
okay.
so.
Okay. But it would
Yes.
be like the Avening hall board special council meeting with council members, just the Avening hall board. It wouldn't be with all 7 halls. Is that
Correct? Yes.
okay? Okay. All right. So we can look forward to that late winter, early spring.
Right.
All right. Okay. Any other comments or anybody else want to weigh in on this?
Nobody else want to say anything? Okay.
All righty. And
I want to just say hello to Lori. I saw you jump in and out here. Nice to see you there. And I like the sign up on the wall behind you there. I hadn't seen that sign in a long time.
Thank you. Where do you think I got that from?
I know exactly where you got it from, but I just think it looks awesome. It looks great.
That is a Christmas gift 2 years, or birthday gift 2 years ago.
Nice. That's
All we
great.
had to do was phone the number on the building and ask them if we could buy it, and they said, just come take it.
Oh, that's so nice.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
That's great. No, that's great. I knew it had disappeared, and so that's great, but I didn't know where it went. So now I know. That's great. I'm glad to see it still in the township anyway. That's great.
Well, I guess now you know if you don't have a sign tomorrow morning, Lori, where it went.
That's my bad.
Next meeting is scheduled for the 18th of February. What do people think? We've been kind of going a little bit more loose with the meetings since the shutdown. Is that too soon, or do we think we want to wait until March, or is that okay? What do folks think?
It's okay.
Is there anything we need to do to prep for these conversations with the municipality is my only question. And would it be a board meeting or more like a workshop, like for just us to talk and like a visioning session? Or like, I don't know if there's anything that we should do in advance of these talks.
I think we could add that to the agenda. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably a good idea.
You're both talking about the same date. We could be meeting on the 18th. Now you're planning meeting on the 18th, so it won't happen for our next
council.
Yeah, hang on, just a second. The meeting on the 18th or 22nd, that would be for council,
meeting. Yeah.
the engineers, our treasury, and the recreation staff to have a discussion about all of the options that we talked about earlier. So it's not about individual halls. These are about the options that we would walk forward to each of our hall board meetings to present that these are the options that we see. What do you see? And that way we can have a discussion about what options we have. So
Yeah. So at our next hall board meeting, we should be able to have an update if we have it after the 22nd. If we have
I
it
see what you're saying. Okay.
we won't have an update yet.
Okay, so then in that case, just looking at my calendar here, do we want to go 25th then, which would be 1 week later than the proposed date of the 18th, Thursday the 25th of February?
Sure.
I mean,
By then we might have.
it's not like we have a lot of places to go.
fair enough.
Go to work.
Nobody. Oh yeah.
I go to work.
Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
Fair enough.
Nothing
Fair
changes
enough.
about my life.
Yeah. Okay, so the 25th, is that sound good then? And then we can have that conversation as a board that night. Okay, great. So we will change that if we can, Kayla, and looking for a motion to adjourn. Melanie, and a seconder for that. Great, thank you, Jennifer. Okay, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you, Councillor Lammers and Mayor Measures. And we'll see everybody later. Stay safe out there.
Stay safe, folks. Nice to see you all.
Take care.
See ya.
Nice seeing you.